My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review for The Sea Beast. And this is the newest animated movie on Netflix. I heard some really good things about it, so I went in with decent expectations, but unfortunately, I was let down. But let's talk about what I did like first, and the animation for this movie does look good. I don't think it's the most interesting or stylistic kind of animation, but it still looks good. I actually think the best looking scene is the very first scene. It just has a level of atmosphere that the rest of the movie is never able to capture again. And I think the voice cast does a fine enough job. You got Carl Urban, who I just saw a few days ago in The Boys Season 3 finale, and that season was a raging pile of shit, but he does a fine job here. You also got Jared Harris, who does a fine job, and you also got Zaris-Angel, who I've never seen or heard about her before, and she does a fine job too, I guess. So, voice cast, not great, not even good, but fine enough. I think the music by Mark Mancina is actually quite good, and there's one song that gets sung in the first act of the movie, and we hear it again in the credits, and I actually think it's a very catchy song. I also love how this movie attempts to explore history and how the victors determine what is considered to be true. I like that idea. And I think this movie has some good action. Like if there's someone sword fighting, it looks really realistic and really good. And if they're hunting down the creatures, that's the best part of the movie. And we kind of get a lot of that in the first act. And I thought that was going to be the main aspect of it. But then eventually the main plot settles in and it turns into a much more generic movie and a movie that I just didn't really care for. Everything we've seen in this movie, we've seen it done better in so many other movies. Especially How to Train Your Dragon and more recently Wolfwalkers. Those two movies just do everything this movie's trying to do, but with much more emotion, with much more depth, with better characters, better animation, better music, better absolutely everything. And the fact that there's just so many similarities between this story and those stories, it's just like, why bother with this one? You're not going to get anywhere near the same level of experience here. So I found that to be very disappointing. I didn't care about any of the relationships that will form. I didn't care about Jacob and Macy forming a friendship. I didn't care about them forming a friendship with this giant beast. I didn't care. It just all felt painfully generic to me. And on top of that, I don't like the animation of the creatures. I thought they just looked really bland and really boring. And once again, lesser versions of the dragons we see in How to Train Your Dragon. And another huge problem I have with this movie is that it's 2 hours long and it did not need to be. This movie could have easily been an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes. Easily. And it just feels so unnecessarily bloated. Like, I think the first act does a fine enough job of setting up this world and these characters, but it's also way too long. Like, it's not until like 45 minutes into this movie that the main plot kicks in. And it's just like, you know what, you could have just shortened down the action a bit in the beginning, get going a bit faster, and then we got a movie story starting at no later than 25 minutes, 30 minutes. And then after that point, they just go through every predictable plot beat you would expect them to go through. And it's just unnecessarily long. I always say the longer a movie is, the harder I'm going to judge it. And considering that this movie is 2 hours long and it doesn't have nearly as fleshed out as characters as How to Train Your Dragon has, doesn't have the same level of emotional depth or anything, and that movie is 20 minutes shorter, then there's just no excuse here. There really isn't. If you're going to be a 2 hour long movie, then own it, and this movie never does. And I really didn't like the last act in this movie. You kind of could see where it was going from a mile away, but there was this big speech said by the little girl Macy, and oh my goodness, I just thought it was so cringe-worthy. Like, not smart writing at all. It's very blatant and very obvious about what it's trying to say and trying to do, and it just is lacking any bit of nuance and subtlety. But that's all I really have to say on this movie. It's a very forgettable and generic movie. You've seen this kind of story done many times before and many times better. I don't think there's much emotion here. I don't think the characters are all that interesting. I don't care about the relationships. It's really long, and even though it does have some decent music and some decent animation and some decent voice acting, it's not enough to save this movie. I'd say skip it. So I'm gonna go ahead and give The Sea Beast a 3.5 out of 10. So long story short, just watch How to Train Your Dragon or Wolfwalkers. But have you seen The Beast? Let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.